Hello, Internet. I am Corion, your witch in residence, and I have been waiting to do this video for a long, long time. And because I'm so excited, and you guys were so excited for Gabby, I've brought Gabrielle back. Gabrielle, it's wonderful to have you back again. I really appreciate having you here.
Yes.
You know, Now, before we get too deep in, I think as per usual, we must complete the obligatory ritual that is necessary on all YouTube videos. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm hoping today is the day that Gabrielle and I earn a like, a share, and a subscribe to this video from you guys. The subscription numbers super help. I am basically impossible to find on YouTube without that subscription. So if you click the subscribe button, you click that little bell to get notified when we put out videos, you will get them. The internet will learn how awesome you are. And more importantly, you will have our thanks. So please consider that. Now, with that obligatory ritual out of the way, let's dig into this one because, oh boy, is this a good one. Fans apparently really appreciated having you here as well.
I was so excited with the video.
Right.
It was so good.
Right. And I mean, and you were saying how much, positive feedback you got from other people.
Yeah, all my friends were very excited and they wanted to see more. So,
well, let's give them more, right? Especially given that this is October. It's the witchiest month of the year. Let's do the granddaddy of witchy stuff. The movie that I think you can credit with bringing more people to the craft than any other movie.
Me. Literally me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud and pleased to present you guys with The Craft.
And guess what I have?
Oh, very nice. You brought your magic potion. Well, I did too. I blended up a couple of Smurfs and got it ready for us here.
Love it. Love it.
That's some good Smurf energy. Okay. All right. So when we're talking about the movie The Craft, we should give a little bit of preamble to this. Now, as I recall, this was a feature that had been trying to get off the ground for a very, very long time. People had been fighting to try to get it made, and then it wasn't going to get made, and then it was going to get made, and they made a whole lot of changes, and eventually they brought on some real genuine witches in the form of Pat Devon and of course Firuza Balk, one of the main characters from that series. Now you uncovered some stuff too, right?
Oh yeah.
With Andrew Fleming, right?
So I was doing some reading. I'm just gonna have to read this here. I'm sorry, Charmed. Loved you as well, but apparently Charmed was completely ripped off from The Craft, as well as the song. And I noticed that long time ago.
Oh yeah, I think all of us did.
If you go back, I actually noticed this. I watched the Charmed on Netflix, and I was like, "Where's the How Soon Is Now by Love Spit Love as the Charmed theme song?" They changed it years later. Charmed it. I don't think anybody's talking about this, but apparently, he said that Fleming said that he wrote a pilot based off of the Craft movie, and Fox was like, "Nah, whatever." And then all of a sudden, like literally a year later,
Charmed comes out.
Like, oh, okay.
Now,
yeah, and there was a one of the actresses, the main character. I think her name is pronounced Robin Tunney.
Yes.
I keep going back and forth between Robin Tooney and Robin Tunney. I think it's Robin Tunney.
I think it's Tunney as well.
It was a blatant ripoff to the point where people thought that she was on Charmed when she wasn't.
That makes for an interesting Mandela effect, though, doesn't it? Like,
right?
It was so close.
Oh, it gets even crazier. Holly Marie Combs, who plays Piper, was going to be in The Craft. She wanted to audition for it and never got the role. So, like, could have crossed paths.
Now, we should also say for the record that Charmed is while can be entertaining, is really nothing like actual craft. But the craft itself, oh yes, there is a lot of good, accurate information. I think the best way to explain it is most of the stuff you see on screen, it was, changed to protect secrets, but otherwise not much else.
Yeah.
So let's dig into it a little bit, right? I mean, let's go over the basic plot of it, and then we can start, kind of going through each individual piece. So we've got,
Her mom passed. She died giving birth, and they
right,
just moved to a new place.
right,
And mom or dad is now with a new girl. That's why she calls her Jenny, because it's like stepmom or whatever.
right. And she goes to a school and meets, a looks like a Catholic school actually, and
Yes.
meets three young girls who have been starting to work the weirding way, if you will, and realize that she is their fourth, and that together they can pool the resources, pool their magic, and make really incredible effects. And of course, power corrupting and absolute power corrupting absolutely clearly on display here, as the girls get what they want and start realizing that they don't just want this anymore. They want control, they want power, and what that does to a person. And eventually we have the main character realizing that power isn't everything it's cracked up to be. And what's more important is to be a reasonable human being and go about your life and try to be as decent as you can. Which, I mean, really, when you start breaking it down, seems to be how a lot of baby witches go through life, doesn't it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how many people do we know that came to craft because they were looking for power? And then they go through, I almost want to call it the gauntlet, where they reach a point where they realize they either go, I'm never going to get this power the way I intended because I want it too much, and either walk away, or they fall in love with actual craft and just like the
Yeah.
wonder of it
Yeah.
and start
Good
digging
book.
deep into it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
I had a girl when I'm pretty sure I was in like grade 7 or grade 8. She was like, "Yeah, I have this book that's passed down from our family. It's has a bunch of jewels and this and this." And like I was originally from like Western Canada.
Sure.
So small town. And she's like, we have to go to one of the big cities and into the subway system and like go down this like secret tunnel thing in one of the subway systems. And you have to say this spell that was mailed to you, snail mailed to you. You say the spell and a portal opens up. And she tried to go through and she got stuck in the portal. And I'm like, tell me more. Tell me more. Because like this sounds so ridiculous.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of an. To be fair, in Toronto, we almost had a similar thing, but it was slightly different. So when Toronto had a place called the Occult Shop at, I'm going to give the address because why not, at 109 Vaughan Road.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was always some interesting stuff about it. People said that you couldn't find the place unless you were actually looking for it. Like you had to be actively searching for this place. Otherwise, it would just blend into the background on you, which I suppose is kind of true because it was a pretty generic looking storefront that didn't really stand out at all. But you would take the subway to get there because it was so far downtown, you weren't going to drive there. You don't drive in
Yeah.
Toronto, there's too much traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the entrance near 109 Vaughan was this weird elevator end, like this weird elevator exit that literally came up out of the ground in
I
like
remember that.
right. And it's like over by like a weird, like kind of foresty area. So you feel like you just kind of like erupted from a portal from the underworld almost.
And also the irony that it was behind a church.
Right. And also, another fun
Love it.
fact, at a regular walking pace, if you threw on How Soon Is Now, by the end of the song, you actually made it all the way to the shop.
That's perfect. That's
It
perfect.
was amazing, right? I mean, they couldn't have made that local boogity boogity store more boogity boogity than if they had done it any other way. It was perfect.
Fun fact, they now have um shelving in the shape of coffins at the shop.
Oh, very nice. So yeah, so I mean, when I started out in craft, before that, I had actually been studying hermetic magic for quite a while,
Mhm.
and I got into it. One, because there's very little music actually involved in hermeticism, and when I started hearing the music that was associated both with the craft and with actual witchcraft in rituals, um, it just drew me in, and it felt like home. And I studied more, I learned more, and that's kind of how I got here. Um, I mean, you were mentioning that you had watched The Craft and were one of those baby witches that got
Oh, yeah.
drawn in.
Yep. Got my first tarot deck because of it. Got some of my friends involved because of it. Told the wrong people and got myself in trouble because of it. All of the things.
Let me guess, you bought a whole bunch of Llewellyn books and
Yes, yep,
yep.
I did. Funny thing, tried to do the light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff.
Yeah, all us young baby,
All of us have done it. All of us have done
fluffy
that.
buddy witches.
Now, I've actually been so I was actually in a play that had that light as a feather, stiff as a board piece that they wanted to do as part of the play. And they couldn't get it to work. Now, I'd been studying craft for about 2 or 3 years at this point. And I happened to be one of the extras that they brought in to help with this because they couldn't lift the guy. They brought me in and it worked perfectly the first time. So, there I am, in my like street clothes for this rehearsal. I've got my big honking pentacle on. And I walk up and do this, and everyone's looking at me like, well, sure, now that we bring in the witch, we can do it, right?
Love it.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's go through some of the scenes. So the first time we really see anything of substance, we have the 3 girls sitting there, supposedly calling the quarters. Earth, air, fire, water. Now, those are the quarters that we use, though not in the same way. And while you can definitely have one person at each quarter for 4 witches in a group, we tend to organize in odd numbers for the most part.
Or however it suits you. I don't think there's a number, it means anything. Hollywood and media make it so like boogity is like we literally do the same thing as any other religion. It's just slightly different, and you think that we worship the devil when we don't.
No, I mean, look, let's get into it a little bit. Now, we don't in the movie they substitute in a divine being they call Mano.
I mean, it's everything. It's the trees, it's the ground, it's the rocks, it's the moon, it's everything. It's nature. No. If God and the devil were playing football, Mano would be the stadium that they played on.
We have nothing like that. Nowhere in the tradition at all. I mean, we do have a goddess, and we have her consort, the horned god. And when we say horned god, we're not talking like devil horns. We're usually talking like Pan, or that kind of looking deity, more of like stag horns.
And that's where they got the image from.
And that's where they got the Catholic Church originally got that imagery.
They're trying to convert people.
Right. But the truth is, most of the time we're mostly goddess worshiping types, and pretty relaxed about stuff for the most part. I mean, we're really kind of chill about the whole thing. And there's no, I don't know about you, but the way I've always looked at our path here, I don't see the goddess as a all-powerful being sitting over your shoulder constantly trying to tell you what to do. More of like a guidance counselor with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you'll ask about something. It's like, if you do this, these are the potential consequences for your actions.
Yeah.
I won't tell you to do it, or I won't tell you not to do it. But if you do it, I am going to laugh my ass off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I've always kind of perceived it. So it's a little bit of a different dichotomy, if you will.
Can I give an example?
Sure, go for it.
So, if you tell me to name the person, I will name the person, but for now I won't name them.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a spell to meet a particular actor that lives in Canada. I did the spell around October one year. For the next 7 months, I was literally 1 or 2 people away from said person. I describe it as the universe was smacking me in the face with a fish. I don't know why I describe it that way, but I remember like at 2:30 in the morning, I wanted crackers and cheese for no particular reason other than I was craving crackers and cheese. Went to the store, and like anything could have happened. I could have crossed a different way, taken more time, taken less time,
gone to a different store. Yeah.
Gone to a different store. I walk in, and what's playing is a song that is featured in a movie that he's in. And I recounted this to a friend of mine, and she's like, that song's in every movie. Like, that can mean anything. And I'm like, what, do you want the universe to call me? Say, universe is calling about this thing? She's like, yes, I do. And I'm like, well, you're stupid. I have no rebuttal for that. So later on that evening, one of my old roommates texted me a handprint, and she was like, guess who this is? And I'm like, why are you texting me a bloody handprint? She's like, it's chocolate. My phone sucks. And I was like, okay, well, my go-to is insert name here. She takes another picture with his signature. So I'm like, okay, so the universe didn't call me. It just texted me. It was the same day.
Right.
7 months go by. And then I proceeded to not only meet him 5 times in the next year and a half, I was on set of one of his shows. And apparently he moved to where I am around the time that I did said spell. And I'm like, well, I'm not saying I'm going to take credit, but maybe I can.
Right. So, we do occasionally do stuff mostly because it's fun and because we can get away with it. But yeah, you don't need multiple people to necessarily do something, but it always does help to share the load across multiple people if you are trying to do something big. Like, as you know, well, making a movie, since that is your background.
Exactly. Yeah, I went to film school in 2006, 2007. Learned how to make them movies.
There you go. So, yeah, so then we move through their days of realizing that they can actually work together. And God, they are so much baby witches at the beginning of this movie. And I love that.
Lots of egos going around, for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And it's definitely, we start to see them kind of cohesively coming together as a group. And that definitely happens when you've got shared experiences among craft people. We form close friendships fast.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say that. I loved that they tried to bring in like almost the scene after they get off the bus and they head into the park, which I mean, we've all done too. In Toronto, the local, one of the local pagan groups actually runs open circles that are open to everyone. And I won't tell you how many people come to those on the TTC, like our transit bus system. And it really does look like this parade of vaguely gothy people going down into the middle of a park in the middle of nowhere. It's really kind of fun. Right?
Bunch of weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Right. Well, we are the weirdos, right?
We are the weirdos.
There you go. And I love that they put together, though, this little bit of an initiation for the group. You'd never see somebody pointing a sword or drawing blood in any Wiccan ritual I think I've been in the last while.
Also diseases.
Right?
Why? No.
Yeah,
Somebody
no.
did that in a circle, I'd be like, I'm not drinking that.
Yeah, like
you.
Yeah, like I'm not sure. Don't take this the wrong way or anything, but I'm not sure where your blood has been. One, right, and two. I mean, Frieza Balak's character makes it very clear that one of the boys that they're interested in carries disease, and that she knows from experience. And yet she's adding her blood to the chalice there. That sounds like a quick, a fast track to like herpes or something. Like pass on that, right?
I don't want your magical herpes. Thank you.
No. So, I did like, though, that they tried to put something together to show that intent. Now I've never had butterflies swarm me in a ritual.
No, but I've had weather things happen.
I've had weather things. I've also had raccoons join me in ritual.
Double rainbow in one of them.
Very cool.
And I think there was a Toronto Pagan Pride Day that all of us collectively on the way there noticed that the weather was not getting
better.
Any better. It looked like it was going to rain, and I think all of us did the rain, go away, come again another day thing on the way there, and it was just nice. And we were like, it called for rain. What happened? And then all of us were like, well, I did this thing. Did you do this? Oh my God, you did it too. And they're like, yeah, so enough people did it that.
Yeah. I mean, I would, so I will once again refer to the wise and powerful pervy sage.
Mm-hmm.
There was a ritual that he wanted to do with me, and he took me out into the middle of a pretty open field. There was a little hill on top of the field. I won't give away specific locations, and it's raining cats and dogs at the time when we get out there. And we're starting the whole process of the test. And he's got rain poncho and everything on. And he says, aren't you going to take a raincoat? And I'm like, no. If I'm going to go and do this, the rain is going to leave us alone while we're up there. I've decided this because I'm not doing this test in the rain. And sure enough, things get started. We're going through the trial, and a hole completely circular opens up in the clouds.
That's awesome.
Perfect circle, 1 mile around where we are. So sun is coming down and it's raining everywhere else. And awesome. We get back to camp, and the priestess who is married to Pervy Sage looks at me and goes, "That was you, wasn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, that's an acceptable job. This is reasonable, Right? But she not exactly the most forward coming with the compliments, but it was still there, and I appreciated it. So
it's hard to impress her.
It is.
And when you do, you've done good.
Right. Yeah, so I do like that they did that. That they showed that there was some physical manifestation of their work. The other ritual that I was talking about with the raccoons. We were literally doing a ritual at one point in the park, and the raccoons joined the circle. Like they literally got into appropriate places in the circle and stood on their back legs.
Oh my gosh.
And we're like, I'm not sure if they're imitating us because they think this is fun, or whether they like are just determined to join us for like cakes and wine. But
either that or you're Cinderella.
Right? Like, or yeah, somehow I'm about to get magic slippers, which admittedly my feet could probably use, but just not high heels. Like I need like loafers or something.
Yeah.
Do they make a glass loafer, I wonder?
Maybe.
Oh.
Maybe.
So yeah, I also love that in this movie they really show that intent is an important part of magic. And we get that a lot, where they may say something, but the intent behind it seems to almost be more powerful. The subtext of each individual character really comes through. And I feel like the best way that is described is after that ritual, that initiation ritual in the park where they're drinking the icky blood wine. The they've stopped, and each of them have said the thing that they want, and we see what the actual intent was. Right? They may have said it in like a positive, uplifting manner, but deep down they kind of like, for example, the black girl in the group actually did want to hurt the people that were hurting her.
I drink of my sisters, and I ask for the ability to not hate those who hate me, especially racist pieces of bleach blonde shit like Laura Lizzie.
And that's what happened, right? You know, Nev Campbell's character really wanted to be the one that got the looks from all the boys.
I drink of my sisters, and I take into myself the power to be beautiful. Sorry, my pedicure ran late.
Stop on me.
Wow. Holy shit.
Hey, Bonnie. How's it going?
That's all she really cared about. She didn't care about the repercussions of that. And we saw that go through, right? And I mean, Firuza Balk's character, she just wanted her father dead, right?
Yeah, they all wanted something that was the easiest way to describe it would be well, first off,
very selfish, I guess.
It's selfish, personal gain, if you will. If anybody's watched Charmed, they know that whole thing. They took it to a completely different place than what it's supposed to intend. Like, no personal gain, but that doesn't mean you can't do spells for yourself and stuff like that. It's a no harm situation. The amount of times that I've had people say, don't do a love spell on me, and I'm like, why would I? Why would I ever touch that? That is like Wicca 101. No, 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 no. You don't do that.
The way I like to explain it is consent is so important.
Yeah.
In when you're doing any sort of magical work.
Well, okay, if we're going to talk about consent, the main character wanted the boy. She didn't consent with him. Guess what happened? The R word.
Yeah.
He didn't consent with her. Well, almost the R word.
and then Firuza goes right back and does the exact same thing to him. It's a cycle that just spiraled farther and farther into terrible things.
You don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really does represent how we kind of, I mean, to use the rule of three, whatever we send back out comes back 3 times as much. I mean, it's kind of a trope at this point, but it really is on display in the craft. Because everything they wanted really did, like every negative thing that they did and every positive thing really came back to bite them.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if a magical genie came down and said you could have 3 wishes, what would you wish for? I'd be like, I don't want it. Go away. You know, I don't want your wishes because I know that, you know, well, the true story of genies or jinn, they twist your words. They so in terms of magic, you have to be very careful with your intent. The way I was rewatching it actually today, The Craft, and I was noticing there was a handful of different things. It's not just magical intent. It's not what you send out comes back times 3, or you know, if there's other people, there's times 10, what some people believe. But if you go down the science route, I'm very much into quantum physics. When you send out information to the quantum, it does come back to you. I put out there that I wanted to meet this person, and it tweeted at me. The universe tweeted and was like, you can go to a show, and then you can be on set, and then you can, meet this person in different places. I'm just going to, have fun with this and laugh at you for 7 months because I
Well,
can.
yeah.
I wanted to do something small to see if I could do it. I can. And that's also the baby witch mentality of, I want to summon a demon, and then they get scared and they realize that it did work, and now they've gone
They have to deal with
opposite and have to deal with the repercussions, or they're scared and they'll never touch it again. And I'm like, okay, then why did you try to do that in the first place? That's just common sense, but I guess that's a superpower.
Right. I mean, to me, yeah, there are times where I will do stuff simply to see if I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But upon realizing that you can do a thing, there's a responsibility level there. And not just to yourself, but to other people as well. Right?
It's a no harm responsibility.
Right. Or at least, I mean, I personally think that no harm to anyone ever is kind of impossible because, I like to eat. Right. And at the very least, some carrot's going to die for me to live. At the very least. But it's a responsibility to use the tools that we have been given in a responsible manner. Just like anybody, right? Anybody who picks up a skill. If you, are an auto mechanic, it's your responsibility to make sure you don't let somebody leave the garage with their brakes cut. Right? Same idea.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I look at it. And that's why I think, but we see that in baby witches all the time. Right? How many times have we gotten that phone call of, I thought I wanted to try to see if I could do a stupid thing, and then I did a fantastically stupid thing, and now I'm in trouble. Right? I summoned something bigger than my head, and now, would you please help me deal with a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man? Like, right?
Right? And you're like, why? Why did you do the thing?
Right.
Why?
Yeah, it's kind of like we wind up being like the cosmic, like, janitors in a lot of ways, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going back to our previous video, which I just rewatched, Practical Magic, the 2 ants left with a message to the 2 girls: clean up your own mess. It makes sense because they didn't want to deal with it.
That's it. So let's talk about some of the other rituals. You were mentioning a little while ago that you did a lot of like a deep dive on the beach scene.
Oh my God, yes. Okay. Couple things here. So, well, we all know that there's representations for the 4 quarters, the 4 elements. And I found it kind of interesting because, let me just see here. Rochelle, the water character, carries the clownfish. She carries Nemo, essentially.
Yeah.
Nemo was
She found him.
That was his debut,
Right, there you go.
But that was because of her love of diving and that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And her with her passion with that.
So and then we had
Joy because of the racial bullying that was happening to her.
Yeah.
Bonnie, she carries the butterfly because it represents beauty, and the adoration that she wants from all the boys and stuff in school. Because she doesn't want to be seen as a monster. I think that she's her own worst enemy, and aren't we all?
Right.
Now this is where it gets interesting. Sarah carries the lovebird, which represents her desire for the character Chris, played by Skeet Ulrich. And Nancy carries the snake when it should be the other way around. And I think why they did what they did was because they wanted to associate snakes and snake-like behavior, unfortunately, with Nancy. When Nancy's air and Sarah's earth had the bird and Air had the snake when they should have been switched. But for the film and for the storyline, that made sense.
Right.
Um,
And then we have Nancy with her snake.
yeah.
You know, and I mean, the snake is usually symbolized by what? Rebirth, transformation, immortality, those sort of things are
Mhm.
associated with the snake. Nancy was basically all about trying to get a better life for herself and her mother, as well as power and leadership and control, right?
Mhm. And I think that was the moment that she really, really let it go to her head. I found it kind of interesting, and I don't know if other people caught on to this. And I've seen this movie hundreds of times. I've watched it since the movie came out. And I just noticed all the little subtleties of how the three girls, originally Nancy was like, I don't want to have anything to do with this chick. I don't know who she is. And it was Bonnie, that Nev Campbell's character, that wanted to bring her in. And once she kind of talked Nancy into it, then she realized the power that Sarah had. And that's when I think the three of them almost leached off of Sarah. When Sarah's the more powerful one, Nancy wanted to be the more powerful one, and she was almost terrified of that power. So she wanted to like squash it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like throughout the movie, how she was like trying to bully her coven mates, if you will, her sisters doing this magic into following her when it should all be equal, but she
Yeah.
wanted to be here. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Also with the beach scene,
Mhm.
if you go back and watch that movie, I noticed at the very, very beginning of when they start the ritual, that the tidal wave, the water is far away from them. They're close to the water, but they're far enough away. And I'm pretty sure it was Pat Devin as well as Robin Tunney recounted in different interviews and documentaries that when they started doing stuff,
Yeah, the water started coming up.
it started coming up, and it started like they had to stop, and every time they stopped it would go away, and every time they started it would come back, and they're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, to the point where the minute they actually finished the ritual, the power cut, and they were like, okay, that's weird.
Right? Well, I mean, without giving away anything too serious, the verbiage and the litany they use in that scene on the beach is very close to rituals I have read and seen in books. I will not ever admit to performing those, but what I've seen and read in books, you can find very, very similar things to it.
I will
So,
admit, as a baby witch, I did use like the call of the quarter, because it's like
yeah,
you're only calling a quarter. It's nothing fancy schmancy. You're not like doing anything bad.
no.
But yeah, I was in my baby witch days.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way to explain it would be for those who are not familiar with how we work a little bit. The best way to explain how ritual is done in the most rudimentary sense is you effectively clean a spot like you would be cleaning a house for when guests arrive. The quarters, if you will, represent almost the getting the house ready by having your security team in place, using those elements to clean your house and prepare it for your guests to arrive. The guests arrive, the guests of honor arrive, which I guess the best way would be to explain them as what deities you're calling. You then have your party. Everyone enjoys it. The guests of honor leave. The regular guests leave. You send your security team home, and you try to make the place look like you were never there in the first place as a sign of respect to the nature around you. I guess that is the most
without the parents, and then make sure that, you know.
yeah. Clean up before the parents arrive, and yeah.
Exactly.
You know, I think that is the best way I've ever heard to explain ritual without getting into the deep nuance or anything that would get us into trouble.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want is to get us into trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think either of us want an angry high priestess giving us a phone call in like, a couple of hours or something.
That would be bad.
So we've gone through intent. You know the craft shop that the girls visit in the
Yeah.
movie? It's actually a real craft shop. And
That's
believe it or not,
awesome.
Firuza Belek runs the shop. She owns it.
I think I read that not recently, but she sold it at one
She
point.
did sell it at one point.
But I think the reason why she bought it, it was due to she was doing the research for the show and heard that they were going to shut down that shop and tear it down for something else, and she wanted to keep that alive. For that community, which I was like, you know what, that's actually really, really cool.
Yeah. Now, I mean, as for the books inside that store, look, I don't know about you, but my books tend not to have animated GIFs on each page.
that was a little excessive, right?
Right. I mean, like how
I
cool
wish
would
that
that be?
all my books had that. I have a collection over here. None of them.
Yeah, like if my books ever do, like straight up, if my books ever start doing a full Harry Potter on all the images, I'm gonna question what I'm drinking that night because somebody slipped something in, right?
Either that or I'm calling my high priestess going, I don't know what's going on. I need some help.
Yeah, like, somewhere along the way, I screwed something up, right? How do I, unscrew this up, right? Yeah, so let's see. Glamours. I mean, they use them basically instead of makeup, which admittedly would be super cool. Would definitely make getting ready for a club easier, right? I mean, they are a thing. They do exist. But usually if you're going to put that much energy into something, you're not going to waste it on something like makeup.
No. I think the reasoning why they did what they did with the eyes and the hair was to show something subtle before and then show the fantastical thing that came afterwards.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, hopefully I'm not, I think so. Robin Tunney shaved her head for Empire Records, and so she had like literally a shaved head. So that entire movie is a wig. And if any of you watching this did not know that, rewatch it and watch her hair throughout the entire thing. It's the same part always. When she does the thing,
that's the real magic right there.
That's the real, it's movie magic. When she does the thing with her hair like this and does that, if I'm not mistaken, that was a specific wig and it was the green screen color. So they could change. Yeah.
That is really neat.
Also, when they were doing the light as a feather, stiff as a board, it was like a pole. And there was a thing that Rachel was on, and then they just took it out in post.
Yeah, like they just...
So they made it look like she was floating kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of that. I mean, in 1996, the technology wasn't the greatest. So like the wig, the hair color changing doesn't really hold up that well. But the rest of the movie, yeah.
I mean, the practical effects with like the snakes and the bugs and everything like that turned out really, really good.
Actually, I know the story behind that.
Oh, I'll look forward to that when we get there.